Welcome scholars, welcome back to the Kemet Maasai Academy. Today we're looking at calculating the circumference of a given circle. By circumference we mean the distance all the way around the edge of the circle. Right? Here's the definition. The circumference is the distance all the way around the edge of the circle, just like I said. It is a special name for the perimeter of a circle. So we don't say find the perimeter of a circle. We give it a special name, circumference. But it's the same concept though as the perimeter of a triangle, the perimeter of a square. It's the same idea. We are calculating the distance on the outside, around, all the way around the edge, right? So the circumference is just a special name for the perimeter of the circle. And I did a video on the relationship between the circumference and the diameter. You can check that video later on to refresh yourself on that. And what we discovered, we did some experiments. We measured the circumference, the distance around several circles, and we measured the diameter of those circles, the distance across the middle, the longest chord, and we divided the circumference by the diameter, and we found that there is a distinct relationship between the circumference and the diameter is 3 point something. We got roughly 3.2 something, 3.3, but our readings weren't accurate. You know, in some cases we had to estimate, but the relationship between the circumference and the diameter is 3.14 continue, the decimal continues for thousands of places, and we call that special number pi. And this is the symbol for pi. It's a Greek letter. It's a letter from the Greek alphabet. And you'll find that many special numbers in mathematics are given Greek letters to symbolize them. And pi is one such letter. This is how we write it. And the value of pi is 3.14. In decimal form, in fraction form, it is 22/7. So depending on the numbers that you're working with, it might be easier to work in decimal form, or it might be easier to work in fraction form. If we see where we can do some quick canceling, or you might be told specifically to work in decimal form or specifically to work in fraction form. So look out for that as well, because if you're told to use pi as 3.14, it means they're looking for a particular value, a particular representation. Maybe they want it in decimal form. Or if they say use pi as 22/7, more than likely they are wanting the answer to be expressed in fraction form or whole number form, depending on what the result, what we eventually work out, what it works out to be. So we found out that dividing the circumference by the diameter gives us pi. So logically then, if we already know the diameter and we want the circumference, we don't know the circumference, and we have no way of actually measuring the circumference with measuring tape, for example, we can calculate it by doing the reverse of the operation that we did. Remember, the reverse of multiplication is division. The reverse of division is multiplication. So if we divided the circumference by the diameter to get pi, then we should multiply the diameter by pi to get the circumference. Multiplication and division are inverse. They are the reciprocal of each other. So circumference is equal to the diameter times pi. Diameter is equal to the circumference divided by pi. Now, we also did a video on the relationship between the diameter and the radius. And we said, since the diameter is the distance all the way across the middle of the circle, the longest chord in the circle, and since the radius is the distance from the center to either ends of the circle, that means the radius is half of the diameter. The radius is half of the diameter, so 2 times the radius gives the diameter. Therefore, since the circumference is the diameter times pi, and the diameter is 2 times the radius, then the circumference is also 2 times the radius times pi. Do you see the logic in that? So let me say that again. The diameter is 2 times the radius, because the radius is from the center to the end, and the diameter is from one end to the next end, right? The diameter is 2 times the radius. The circumference is the diameter times pi. And we can replace the diameter here with 2 times the radius. So the circumference then is also 2 times the radius times pi. So in other words, if we're given a circle and we're given the diameter of that circle and we want the circumference, we can just go straight, multiply the diameter by pi, and we get the circumference. But suppose they just give us the radius. Not a problem. It's not a problem. Multiply the radius by 2, which is giving us the diameter, and then multiply that by pi. So we're doing the same thing. It just depends on what you're given. If they give you the diameter already, just go ahead, multiply it by pi, you get the circumference. If they give you the radius, you have to find the diameter first. So that's why you're multiplying the radius by 2 first, and then multiplying it by pi. So it's really the diameter times pi, just the same as this, right? So that's what we're going to do. That's the formula we're using. They want us to calculate the circumference of these circles. In some cases, they give us the diameter. So we're just going to multiply the diameter by pi, whether we use pi in decimal form or in fraction form, whichever seems easier, depending on what we're given. So if we're given, let's say, a multiple of 7, it's easier to just work with the fraction because you can divide the 7 into that number. But if you use the decimal, you'll get the same answer, just in decimal form. These now, they give us the radius. So we're going to use this formula. But remember, in essence, we're doing the same thing. It's pretty much one formula, just that we have the diameter, and here we have the diameter as 2 times the radius. It's the same formula, really. Alright, so let's go then. So we want the circumference, and we're going to remember to put our units at the end, whether it's centimeter, meter, kilometer, our units of measuring length. So the circumference is a measurement of length, distance around the edge. So then, the circumference is the diameter times pi. So since 28 is a multiple of 7, I'm going to use pi in the fraction form. 28 times 22 over 7. Since I know that 7 will be able to cancel into the 28. So 7 into itself 1, 7 into 28, 4. So the circumference is 22 times 4. 4 2 is 8. 4 2 is 8. So that's 88 centimeters. Here the diameter is 1.3 kilometers. I'm going to use pi in its decimal form since I'm working with decimals. So again, I like to write my formula that I'm using. Circumference is the diameter times pi. So the circumference is 3.14. I'm putting that at the top since it has the most decimal places. It has more decimal places than this one, so it's easier to multiply by the less digits. Alright, so 3 4s 12, 3 1s 3 and 1 4, 3 3s 9, 1 4 4, 1 1 1, 1 3 3. And now we put in our decimal place. So remember, when we're multiplying by decimals, we don't need to put in the decimal point in here. We need to put it in the final answer. And we need to count how many decimal places are in the numbers that we're multiplying, right? The multiplicand and the multiplier. So we have 2 up here and 1 down here. That's 3 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3 goes here. So the circumference is 4.082 kilometers. The distance all the way around the edge of this circle is 4.082 kilometers. Alright, so let's look at this circle, 20 centimeters, the diameter is 20 centimeters. We know that the circumference is the diameter times pi. Which one do you want to use this time? Do you want to use the decimal or the fraction? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and use the decimal. I'm going to use the decimal. Alright, so that's 3.14 times 20. Alright, 0. We know that's just 0. We just have to put 1 0, right? And 2 4s 8, 2 1s 2, 2 3s 6. And it's 2 decimal places, 1, 2, 1, 2. So the circumference is 62.8 centimeters. Okay? We don't have to put the 0 here since it's a decimal. The 0 makes no difference at the end of the decimal. Alright, so now these circles, they gave us the radius. But we're good with that. We're good with that because if they give us the radius, we just use this formula. 2 times pi times the radius. And since this is a multiple of 7, we're just going to, so we write our formula, 2 times pi times the radius. We're just going to use the fraction. So it's 2 times 22 over 7 times the radius. And these cancel because 7 is a multiple of itself. So all we're left with is 22 times 2, which is 44. And the unit is meters. Alright, 5.6. The radius is 5.6. Circumference is 2 times pi times the radius. 5.6 is a multiple of 7 because 56, I mean, it's going to be in decimal form, right? It's going to be decimal, but think about it. 56 is a multiple of 7. 7 can divide into 5.6. You're going to get a decimal, but that's fine. So I'm going to actually still use the fraction. So 2 times 22 over 7 times 5.6. And the 7 goes into that 0.8. 7 into 56, 8 times, so to go into 5.8, 0.8. Decimal, but we're good with that. 2 times 22 is 44, and now 44 times 0.8. 8 4 is 32. 8 4 is 32, and 3 35. And that's 1 decimal place. So the circumference is 35.2 centimeters. Alright. So now we have the radius is 10. The radius is 10 meters. Circumference is 2 times pi times the radius. So that's 2 times, what are we using this time? Let's use the decimal. 3.14 times 10. Since we're multiplying by 10, it's easy to multiply decimals by powers of 10. We just move the decimal point that many places to the right. Remember? 2 times pi times the radius. We're multiplying this by 10, we just move it one place to the right. So it's going to be 31.4, and then we just multiply that by the 2. So 2 4s 8, 2 1s 2, 2 3 6. Put in our one decimal place. So the circumference is 62.8 meters, and that's our answer. So now they just want us to complete this table, right? Using all the information that we've gathered, all that we know that the diameter is 2 times the radius is half of the diameter. We know that the circumference is the diameter times pi, or 2 times the radius times pi. So it's going to be pretty easy for us to fill this in. Alright, so for circle A, if the circumference is 88, then the diameter is what? The circumference divided by pi. And when we're dividing by a fraction, we multiply and reciprocate. So that's 88 times 7 over 22. 22 goes into 88 4 times, and 7 4 is 28. So the diameter is 28, and the radius is half of the diameter. So 28 divided by 2, that's 14. Don't forget our units. Okay? Don't forget our units. Alright, this time they didn't give us the circumference, they didn't give us the diameter, they gave us the radius. Once we know the radius, we multiply it by 2 to get the diameter. So 9 times 2, the diameter is 18. And once we know the diameter, we multiply it by pi to get the circumference. Alright, so I'm going to use the decimal. So 3.14 times 18, 8 4 is 32, 8 1 is 8 and 3 11, 8 3 is 24 and 1 25, 1 times 4 4, 1 1 1, 1 3 3, and it's 2 decimal places, so that's 56.52 meters. Alright, now they told us that the diameter is 12. They want the radius, they want the circumference. We can easily find the radius because the radius is half of the diameter. Half of 12 is 6. So the radius is 6. We know the diameter, so we just multiply that by pi to get the circumference. So that's going to be 3.14 times 12. 12 4 is 48. 12 1 is 12 and 4 is 16. 12 3 is 36 and 1 37. 2 decimal places. 37.68 centimeters. Alright. So we have 66 kilometers as the circumference. To get the diameter, we're going to divide the circumference by pi, which means we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. 22 into itself once, 22 into 66 3 times, and 3 times 7 is 21. 3 7 is 21. So the diameter is 21, therefore the radius is half of the diameter. Half of 21 is 10.5 or 10 and a half kilometers. Finally, for circle E, the radius is 4. That means the diameter is what? 2 times 4. The diameter is twice the radius. So the diameter is 8, and the circumference is the diameter times pi. So 3.14 times 8, 8 4 4s 32, 8 1s 8 and 3 11, 8 3s 24 and 1 25, and that's 2 decimal places, 25.12 kilometers. Okay, so we completed the table using the information that we know. The circumference is the diameter times pi, or if we're given the radius, the circumference is 2 times the radius times pi. Same formula really, we're just rewriting it using, in this case using the diameter, in that case using the radius. It's the same thing we're doing because the diameter is 2 times the radius. Alright, so depending on what they gave us in the table, we just did what we had to do. If they gave us the radius, we multiplied it by 2 to get the diameter, multiply the diameter by pi to get the circumference. If they gave us the circumference, we divided it by pi to get the diameter and divided the diameter by 2 to get the radius. Okay? And whether we use pi in decimal form or fraction form, it's up to us unless we're told specifically to use a particular expression of pi, decimal form, fraction form. If we're not told, we need to just look at the numbers that we're given. Usually if it's a multiple of 7, since we know 7 is in the denominator of the fraction expression of pi, if we're looking and we see, okay, this is a multiple of 7, 7 is going to be able to cancel this number, then use the fraction. If you're given a power of 10, use a decimal because it's easy to multiply the decimal by 10, 100, 1,000 and so on. Alright? So your skills will develop as you go along and you'll know which method you prefer. So if you have been helped by this video, just drop a line just to say thank you and share the video. Share it with as many students as you can so that we can spread the knowledge. Don't be selfish and keep it to yourself. Spread it far and wide. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so now. That's the Kemet Maasai Academy channel. And let me know if you don't see the video you're looking for. Just drop a line in the comments and let me know and I'll do that for you. Take care, my scholars. I'll see you in the next video.